On March the 10th, 1876, 7 days after the patent was granted, Thomas Watson and Alexander Graham Bell set up the receiver in Alec's bedroom. The transmitter was, of course, in the next door room, and that's when it happened. Alexander Graham Bell knocked over the battery and spilled the acid on himself. That's when he cried out loudly, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want you." Thomas Watson would later recall the following: "I rushed down the hall into his room and found he had upset the acid of a battery over his clothes. He forgot the accident in his joy over the success of the new transmitter when I told him how plainly I had heard his words. His shout for help on that night doesn't make a prettier story as did the first sentence, 'What hath God wrought?' which Moore sent over the telegraph 30 years before. But it was an emergency call, therefore typical of the great service the telephone was to render to mankind." The evening continued. They laughed over the telephone line, they tested it further. Alexander Graham Bell, of course, in his booming baritone, sang a version of God Save the Queen, and as the sun came up, he even danced the war dance that had been taught by the Iroquois back in Canada. So Mr. Watson was entertained by whoops and stamping, and oh my goodness, were they moving. Not only did they have the patent, but they now had a working device. Mabel, of course, understood the significance of this technical breakthrough, and so too did her father, Gardiner Hubbard. Mabel wrote to Alec and said, "How can I tell you how very glad I am for you? I am so glad you have at last obtained this patent for which you worked so hard and have now, as you say, a fair prospect of success. I am just as happy as can be." Well, of course she was happy, because finally, maybe she would be allowed to marry Alexander Graham Bell and they could get on with their lives. Mabel's faith in her fiancé had been rewarded.